Greetings, friends, and welcome once again to my YouTube channel that's dedicated to developing excellence in marketing, sales, and leadership for pharma professionals. So, if you do like my content, please feel free to click on the like button, to comment, and to share as much as possible. So, what are we going to talk about today? Today is a subject that I've been fascinated for a very long time, ever since my days as a brand manager. This term called disruptive innovation has been a buzzword in corporate circles for a very long time now. It has been used, and need I say, abused in a good measure. So I was very intrigued with this term called disruptive innovation, and I was often wondering to myself, if innovation is disruptive, then what happens with the regular kind of an innovation? And how is disruptive innovation different from all other kinds of innovations? And what exactly one needs to do to have a disruptive innovation? So these were the questions that intrigued me. And the more I read about the subject, the more I became fascinated and thought of its applications in my sphere of work in marketing and as I grew up in terms of being a business leader. So disruptive innovation is a term which is fairly recent. It was coined very recently in the mid-90s by the late professor of Harvard Business School, Clayton Christensen, who has done enormous amount of work, and he stands very respected as a leader in the area of disruptive innovation. So remember, the biggest threat to brand leaders is the one they think about the least. So if you are a brand leader, you can't afford to rest on your laurels or stay complacent. You never know which is that wannabe or which is that startup that can displace you from the leadership position. And that is what we are going to talk about in this session. So how does one avoid the trap of classifying an innovation as disruptive? In order to do that, let us understand the framework of classifying innovation on a 2x2 matrix based on the markets in which we operate and the technology. So what happens with an existing technology in a new market? Well, this kind of innovation is called as an architectural innovation. I repeat, existing technology in a new market. And we in pharma marketing are so used to it. We've had market expansions, we have indication expansions, the technology used in one particular indication, we built a sizable patient share, and then we expanded its usage by looking at adjacent indications and further increasing the market share. Classic examples, minoxidil was first used as an antihypertensive, and later on, its applications grew in terms of hair loss. So we have a number of examples in pharma marketing where you have an existing technology that's been used in a new market. Or take the case of anticoagulants, injectables. When they were first introduced, they were approved for prevention and treatment of venous thromboembolism. And later on, that same technology got applied even to coronary thrombosis. In our real life world, I think the Uberization of taxi services is one striking example of an architectural innovation. Because geolocations, freelance riders, and technology were all available even before, so the technology was very much in existence. But Uber brought all the three together to change the way a customer interfaces and makes use of taxi services. So no more you have to stand on the street and wait in a queue or hail a taxi. You can do it in the convenience of your doorstep and find a taxi at a place nearest to you at your time and your convenience. So that's how architectural innovation has changed the way in which we live. Now, the one that we are most familiar with in our marketing practices is basically incremental innovation or sustaining innovation, where you apply existing technology to existing markets. And in a real life world, I think a striking example is the example of Amazon. Gone are the days when in the 90s, one would actually run to a bookstore to buy books. Well, today it has changed on its head. You can buy books online, and Amazon has now turned into a marketplace where you get every category at the click of a button, right from A to Z. Whatever you have, you can have e-tailing facilities and purchase everything just at the click of a button. And Amazon has added incremental features as they went along. So you had Amazon Prime, you had Amazon Web Services that uses cloud computation for big data and big data analytics and artificial intelligence to synthesize the information into meaningful decisions and actions. So that is how Amazon has transformed itself into a leading player using incremental innovation. In the pharma world, we do that so often, don't we? The new molecules that get launched, right, for the same indication, almost similar technology, but the new molecule brings in an incremental benefit with more beneficial data as compared to the preceding molecule. So we have numerous examples in the pharma field. Take, for example, the management of hypertension. Initially, we were depending on the ACE inhibitors or calcium channel blockers. Then came the ARBs with incremental benefits. And today you have fixed dose combinations which are used, which give you greater convenience. So these fixed dose combinations have really added to incremental innovation to make life easier and simpler for doctors as well as patients. Now, radical innovation is application of new technology in new market. And here we have seen that the technological landscape has undergone a sea change in the recent past. And this has exploded ever since the pandemic came into being and our lives changed with the usage and application of technology in our sphere of work and in our businesses. So today you have technology, you have data, analytics, big data analytics, making use of artificial intelligence to put together all those data into meaningful information and knowledge, classify them into cohorts, devise algorithms that help you to take decisions and meaningful actions. So artificial intelligence or the Internet of Things is one example of radical innovation. And disruptive innovation, which is the main subject of our discussion, is application of new technology in your existing markets. Take the example of Netflix in our day-to-day lives. Initially, you had Blockbuster, which was a DVD rental company, and Netflix rented out DVDs online. But with the postal services, it took some time for coming, and Netflix was not able to target those users who wanted to watch newly released movies. And they focused on those customers who were not too keen on new releases and who were okay to watch any movie of their choice. And as time evolved, Netflix gave the option to its consumers of getting everything online in a very customized fashion, as per their likes, as per their dislikes. They could pick and choose, and they could have a variety of choices for any occasion to take care of their entertainment needs or knowledge needs. So that is how Netflix really disrupted the market. And the predecessor company, the incumbent company which was there called Blockbuster, had to file for bankruptcy as Netflix plugged into the market share of Blockbuster. So this is a simple understanding of what disruptive innovation is all about. You see the blue lines? The three blue lines represent the customer's willingness to buy your product or your service. The line at the bottom represents the low end of the market, the low end customers. The middle blue line represents the mainstream of customers, which gives you a sizable chunk of your revenues. And the top blue line represents the premium, the high end of the market, where you get maximum revenues and profits. Now, the two red lines are basically products or services with a certain performance standard to satisfy or take care of these customer needs. So the top line is basically the incumbent company, which has become huge in size because these companies have not only taken share at the low end of the market, but they have progressed beyond the low end into the mainstream. And now their focus is mainly on the high end of the market because this is where the maximum chunk of the revenues come and the maximum profits get established. So these companies, which are incumbents and which are doing very well and have carved a sizable market share, they put their significant resources, energy, and focus at the high end of the market. In doing so, they leave a space open at the low end of the market, and that is where a wannabe company, a startup, or an entrant can come in. And these entrants, they use the same kind of functionality as the incumbent company to take care of the needs of these customers, and they're able to satisfy the needs with good quality at a much cheaper price. And as they gain the confidence, they upgrade their quality and they move into the mainstream. And when they move into the mainstream, they are able, with the help of the quality and able, with the help of the price, to take care of the needs of the mainstream customers, to preserve their functionality and the advantages that drove their early success. And when the mainstream customers begin to adopt the entrance product or services, that is the time when disruption is said to have occurred. So for a newcomer to be disruptive, they operate at the low end of the market, they eat into the share of the incumbent at the low end of the market and gradually make inroads and take the share of the incumbent at the mainstream and later at the high end. And that's where the role of disruptive innovation is. So to summarize, sustaining innovation or incremental innovation improves existing products. It never creates new markets or value markets, but it develops the existing market with better offerings, better features, better benefits, and better value. So in incremental innovation or sustaining innovation, the focus is very much on the existing market in terms of incremental improvements or benefits. Now contrast this with disruptive innovation. Disruptive innovation, as I mentioned, it helps create a completely new market. And along with the new market, a value network of different stakeholders, be it vendors, suppliers, customers, and technology. And this innovation eventually disrupts an existing market when they eat into the share of the mainstream and the high-end customers after pegging at the share at the low end of the market. So disruptive innovation creates a new market. The innovation is dynamic and it is completely game-changing. And the market is unpredictable because when the disruption happens at the low end, the incumbent company is not even bothered. They don't even feel its impact. They realize it much later when the inroads are made at the mainstream and the top end, as it happened in the case of Blockbuster when Netflix entered the market. So Blockbuster were not even aware that Netflix is chipping into their share at the low end of the market. And by the time Netflix, with its wide features and benefits, reached out to the midstream, it was too late for Blockbuster to react. They missed the bus. They were not proactive. They didn't anticipate. So this is the power of disruptive innovation in terms of creating new markets or completely changing the way in which customers experience or interface with the use of technology with your products or with your offerings. So what makes a successful disruptive innovation? Three broad factors need to be kept in mind. You need to have an enabling technology. Technology is so crucial to have a pleasurable experience for the customer so that the transactions happen at a fast pace and you have great customer satisfaction. You're able to have an invention or innovation that makes a product more affordable and accessible to a wider network of the target population. The second thing that you need to have is an innovation business model. So business model that targets non-consumers who did not buy your products or services in a given market or low-end consumers. So your business model must be clearly able to define the type of consumers you want to reach and how you introduce features and functionalities in your product to take care of the needs of these customers and satisfy them or give them a better experience in terms of quality or overall experience at a better price as compared to the incumbent company. So the business model is again a very critical factor in building disruptive innovation. The third thing which I mentioned is having a coherent value network. And here it's an integrated stakeholder network which is connected together by technology, where you have vendors, you have suppliers, you have customers, you have the company that is disrupting all together in the same platform, and who use innovation to upgrade technology and create a better experience for the customer or for the consumer or for the patient. So let us look at some of the important pathways of disruptive innovation in healthcare. And the first thing that has come to mind, which is completely disruptive, is the entire application of technology in the form of consumer devices, wearables, and apps. So today, smartwatches or Fitbits are very much in vogue. Earlier, a patient in the doctor's clinic had to make use of biometrics to gather data on heart rate, on pulse, on ECG, on blood pressure, on oxygen saturation. Today, no more is that really required. Technology has transcended the doctor's clinic. So just by wearing a Fitbit, we can measure the heart rate or the response of the patient to certain kinds of medication or certain kinds of lifestyle modification. And that information is fed into the doctor, who can really look at the data and see how the patient is progressing over a period of time. So this is a classic example of disruptive innovation. And marketeers in pharmaceutical industry would do well to take cognizance of this fact and to see how we can leverage technology to create a better experience, integrating the doctor and the patient together in a 360-degree service model to upgrade your service offering and to create that lasting and sustainable bond and relationship with your customers. Also, today, artificial intelligence and machine learning has come a big way. You have data from multiple sources. You have data from wearables. You have data from electronic health records. So machine learning and artificial intelligence is something that can be very useful for organizations today. The entire area of data analytics and big data that can pull out, disparate sources of information from different sections, classify them into meaningful cohorts, establish algorithms, and help create a blueprint in terms of decision-making and action plan to take concrete action in terms of managing different conditions or different type of patients. So today, even diagnosis is done with the help of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Treatment algorithms are guided through artificial intelligence and machine learning. What are we doing today? What is the healthcare industry doing in terms of partnering with hospitals or partnering with clinicians in terms of building electronic health records and big data analytics that help you to access and look at the patient much better, even without the patient being physically in front of you? So you have all the records over there, the past history, all the reports. You have all the information that can be synthesized very systematically to arrive at an algorithm or a decision making in terms of a treatment pattern and diagnosis. So truly, technology can revolutionize the entire landscape of healthcare. And that is what marketers need to keep in mind today when you're trying to build in a disruptive innovation model of delighting your consumers and your customers. So friends, a very simple way to understand disruptive innovation. We need to understand the full circle of the innovation cycle, from innovation, which is doing the same things a bit better, incremental improvements, to doing new things, and finally building in disruption by making things that make the old things obsolete. So this, in a nutshell, very simply summarizes all that we have been discussing in this session on disruptive innovation. So remember, it moves the needle from being innovative, that is doing the same things a bit better, to doing newer things, and finally disruption by making things that make the old thing look obsolete. So friends, I would like to end with this wonderful quote from Bernard Lobo, who is the CEO of Medavie, which is an healthcare organization dedicated to a lot of paramedic services and air ambulances. So listen to what Bernard Lord has to say. Innovation doesn't always come in the form of a new product or new technology. Sometimes it's about new way to address an old problem. So friends, do remember that if you are a market leader, you can't rest on your laurels or be complacent about the fact that you are a leader. You have to look out for potential entrants and potential threats in your market. And you've got to up your ante in terms of doing things better, differently, or introducing new technologies in your existing market to stave off the challenge of entrants and disrupt your market. So friends, I do hope this brief session has given you some points to ponder and give you some clarity also in your mind in terms of what exactly is disruptive innovation and how disruptive innovation is different from the rest of the innovations that we so commonly talk about. So let's not use it as a buzzword, or let us not abuse it, but let us really understand its nuances and use it to leverage in order to enhance the power of our businesses and the power of our brands. So good luck, and let's disrupt through our innovation. As I said, if you like my talk, please do subscribe to my channel, click in the like button, do comment, and do share. Thank you very much, and have a good time.